So it's by no means a perfect match, but it's getting there. So those kind of weird cowls are done on the front there. Let's tip it back slightly. And I am going to neaten them off with the grey going on there. Yeah, relaunch. Yeah, there's been that version of Battletech called Alpha Strike, which is a lighter version. It's more, I think mechs are less, they don't have the massive damage grids like the classic version. So what I'm going to do here is I probably should have hair dried it again, but I'm just going to go on. That's way too thin a paint. Trying to make sure things are in focus everywhere. Possibly not. Yeah, I think I nearly stopped breathing there. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. It's not perfect, but they're on there. I can sharpen it up later. The washes and various things will start to tidy it up. So other areas, right? So what I need is a dark brown to start in the cockpit area. I can just find a dark brown. Nearly there, dark brown, got one. So this is Battlefield Brown. I'm just going to use that as the first layer on the cockpit. Now, best way to get this on view, probably tip it back slightly. Paintbrush going in. Again, it's going on really thin. Let that momentarily dry with a blast from the hairdryer. So brown cockpit doesn't look great, does it? But I'm going to go on there with some red, and then also going to go on there with some black to gradiate it. But I'm not going to do, again, I'm not doing a super gradiated result. I'm just going to go for a quick and dirty sort of approach. So I'm putting some black into the wet palette and some white. So right, that brown's nicely dried again, so I'll take some of the red that I already had. And when you're doing this gradiated sort of cockpit, it's just simply a case of going dark towards the top and then lighter towards the bottom. But you do need to bulk in your colours first of all. Or fill in the colours even. Am I out of frame? I am. So next up, just more of this flat red. And what I'm going to do in my palette, which you can't really see, oops, there goes the hairdryer. You can't really see visually without me zooming in too much, but I'm going to just mix some of the brown in with the red just to blend it a bit. Slightly out of the frame, sorry. And then I'm going to take some of the black sort of pull that through the top, very top section here. So really it's just a fine line along the top. And that makes it something that you can highlight up when you're working on it, which is great for putting a tiny white dot in the corner, which I shall do after a little while. Yeah, so holding my breath again there while I'm working on it. And I'm not holding my breath too badly. So what? That's enough at the top, otherwise you're spending too long on it. But what I need to do is now highlight the red up. Now ideally I should highlight the red up with orange, and I haven't got orange to hand. But I'll put a bit more of the straight red on the bulk of it down at the bottom to tidy it up. And this is the reason again really for just need to get another colour. I'm gonna get like a yellowy orange. It's the reason for going on so thin that initially when you put it on it looks awful because you think you want better coverage than what you've got. But then after you've done it for a bit, you realise that if you want to layer up, you need to go on thin, otherwise you're going to start having blobs of paint everywhere. So this time I'm using Signar Yellow in the palette. Just realised I might be able to move the palette over a bit. So at least you can see some of the brush action going in there. And I think I'm going to use maybe a smaller brush, if I can find a good one. Yeah, so this is a Tamiya 00, is it? No, 000. Tamiya Modelling Pro Brush 000. And you can see it's a lot thinner, tinier. So now I've got the yellow, Signar Yellow. I'm going to mix a bit of that in with the red. Small amount of the Glaze Medium. It's just giving me an orangey colour really in the palette. Try not to get too much paint on the brush. Try and keep it in focus, going along the bottom. You don't need to make making excuses, obviously. Oh, hi Fred, thanks for listening in. Yes, I'm doing this gradiated cockpit, and I'm just about to make an excuse for myself, which is obviously in the paneling there, I haven't done perfect lines, and I think that's probably there's something to actually suggest that, you know, if you did a perfect lines, one line area of colour at a time, and didn't have some variation going through it, it would look a bit unnatural, sort of almost computer gradiated, photoshopped style. But so I've nearly got some neat yellow now. Getting all sorts of stuff happening on my palette. So wet palettes benefit you by allowing you to keep a few paints on the go at once, like an artist palette that doesn't dry out. But then you also get an issue that if they get a bit too moist, your paints will start running. So sometimes you do it, and you see a bit like that. That I'm quite happy with the last bit of yellow, but I think it just needs to be blended up a little bit. It's gone a bit bright. So by way of explaining the stage I'm on in doing this, is that really this was the only extra piece of detailing I was going to do beyond starting chipping and pin washes. I just wanted to make sure I had a clean looking, decent cockpit on here, and then everything else would be quite quick in terms of the pin wash style I'm going to do with oils. So once I've got the cockpit sort of, I'm happy with it, I'll move on to the oil washes, which are next. Oh, for the camo, I happen to have them still here. Since I'm trying to be interactive, let's have a look. So for the camo, I used duck egg green, which was airbrushed on. Sick green was the base colour, basically, the base darker green, and then the duck egg went on top. I didn't really do much in the way of blending, I just sort of sprayed it from the top down. Both of them, well, one's Model Air and one's Game Air. They're both the same thing, really, from Vallejo. And then the brown camo was airbrushed with the khaki brown. So that's the camo thread. That's basically it. And then, as I was saying earlier, I mean, all I've done now is I just did some red on the front of the two particle projection cannons, and then did some grey at the front as a stripe. And really, I just wanted to bring, I know it's probably talking a bit too scientifically, but basically I did feel that I wanted details of the red sort of showing in a couple of different areas on there. So yeah, I mean, what you then do, if I was rushing this now, is you get a tiny white dot and then you put it at the top. So going on white dot, and the other thing to do, which I used to do, was, and this is the tricky bit, so I'm going to give it a go, but it's hard, is to do a black line along the bottom. And this is really a bit harder, but I'm going to try. think I did it. There's probably one patch there that didn't. And then if I take a very thin splodge of the Glaze Medium that I've got on here, plus the yellow, getting a bit too much water on it, but so it's almost like a little glaze of yellow that I'm going to go on with. Could sort of come back along the bottom. There's probably too much paint on there. So that's going to do. Now, interesting enough, on these Aerotech ones that I did a while ago, I did little dots with very faint grey. They're only really just visible towards the front. My theory with that was that they're like canopy, cockpit lights flickering out onto the canopy glass. Both arms intact, yeah. Well, it is an old one. Can't wait to finish Spugs. Spugs are good, yeah. So yeah, I did the canopy dots in grey. I don't know if I'm going to bother with that, and I put some more dots up there. This has got a bit dusty actually over the years. Oh, it's gone out of focus too. But yes, if I can get that back in focus, I'll show you what I mean with the... Yeah, so little canopy dots that you can just see along the top. I had in mind I might do that on this one, but I'm probably not going to, because that's just taken me a long time anyway, getting that cockpit glass nearly right. So yeah, I'm sort of happy with that now. So do I go straight on with the oils, or do I crack open a box of decals? I think it probably needs some decals. I think 1,000 more bugs to paint. That's nothing. I do that in a day. Come on, man. Just 1,000. Oh, that sounds like an awful lot. You must have a big game on. So, yes, decals. Transfers. I found the transfer box. Just a moment. Transfer box on its way. So that's me kind of done with that wet palette. I'll get that out of the way. I'll get the model moved without it falling over. So I have here a collection of, I have it in my sort of transfer box, mostly Gundam decals. And you can see the kind of thing. Some of them are really small. And it's interesting really, these are built to go on the 1/44th or the 1/100th scale Gundam plastic model kits. And yet they're still just as good on a very small kind of 6mm scale mech. Yeah, some of the bigger ones obviously not so. So not really. I'm seeing some interesting warning things on there. And the other tip with this is, if you're putting any of these on, it's no good if you've got like this light surface that I've got on this one. Although some of the brown is a darker one, it's no good putting very light text decals on it. As you can see, there's some white ones on this sheet, and that would be terrible. But I've seen a couple of caution ones there that will be interesting. There's a caution one on there I like. I'm going to take that one off there. So then I've got a lot of loose ones which I've used over the years. And I did used to have, I might even have like a Jade Falcon one. Oh, look at that. Struck gold. So why not put a couple of Jade Falcon ones? Jade Parrots I call them. So yeah, these are Clan Jade Falcon. Oh, 40k. Unfortunately, I'm not a fan of 40k at all, even the rules. But I mean, it can be a lot of fun. I don't like Jade Turkey, yeah, Jade Turkey, Jade Parrot. I don't like the D6 to hit, D6 to wound type mechanism, but it's, you know, it's a lot of people do like it. And then obviously, if you ever played Flames of War, they basically use the same rules for Flames of War, which was always a big. I have to say this, it was a big moment of. Well, I didn't mock anybody because I don't mock anybody, but my club, which I was a member of for 15 years, I was mocked relentlessly for being a fantasy, you know, Battletech, sci-fi, and I did play some 40k, but they mocked me. They said, "Oh, you bring your goblins up to play with tonight, like you're playing with toys, because we're playing our serious war games, naval battles and Napoleonics, which I played as well, and I didn't, you know, I had no problems with them. But you know how it is in a club; they like to, you know, find a way to bring someone down by mocking them, and well, the joke was on them or on me. No, it was on them because finally, after years of 40k being mocked, they ended up playing it with Flames of War because Flames of War is 40k. So yeah, but with pretending that they're playing World War II. Right, enough of that. So what am I going to take off these? These are a bit too big. I mean, there's some nice water slides on there and some numbers, but those are far too big. This one's got some interesting numbers. I quite like that B05. I don't think there'd be anywhere on the model for it to go though. Yes, I mean, yes, 40k is cheap, isn't it? There's been so many books out and people have to kind of keep up with the latest rules, don't they? I found out today, actually I've got a colleague, because you always find these colleagues at work, aren't they? And he's just 40k only. He doesn't even know that other games exist really. He's really is just focused on that one genre and one game system. But he was saying now vehicles, tanks, if you get a model within an inch of a tank in 40k, all it can do is move out. It has to move away. It can't fire. I just thought it was interesting. Not really a lot of fun for everyone if it's your pride and joy super tank gets a model within an inch of it and all it can do is reverse. But I guess it's part of the sort of mechanics. These are possibly too big as well. So I'm going to have to get cutting these now, otherwise I'm wasting time. Gets that out of the way. Right, what have I got? I've got here tri-tool, cutters, scissors. They're very controllable because they've got the handles like that. So if you're a weirdo like me who likes to buy all the tools and toys, these are excellent. So I can see already I like some of these ones on here. So I've got some caution signs. Just grab those off that one. Get some Jade Falcons, get the model over. Will it have space on it to take one of these? Just looking at sizes. You know, you kind of feel like you want a relatively big one somewhere. I know on the book it's up on the side there or somewhere. So I'll do a mix of those. I'll just cut some up. Goes in randomly, no planning. And that's not very well done. I'll take one of the larger ones, but not the massive one. Either right shoulder or left leg is a standard placement for clown, is it? Ah. So you really know your stuff. I don't really know that level of detail. Just because I've got this in front of me. Start to drop them in there to soak as and when I take them off. So here are the smaller ones. So one of the things to do with decals like this is to obviously come as close as you can to the actual symbol, because you don't want to put a lot of just plain water slide on. You want the image to be as tight as you can to the edge of the image. Been playing for 20 years, was active till they cancelled the Can book. The Can book? What's that one then? So I've got these very tiny warning symbols. Just going to go really, really close to them. I like the caution with the X, just because that will stand out nicely. This is fiddly work. This is stuff I should have done before the video, isn't it? Prepared. So I'm just trimming this one down again because I mean it's small, but it's falling out of my hand now. But I don't want all of that extra water slide. I just want the image. So do I put some red triangle warnings on? Maybe I do. Yeah, I'm going to take out 2 red triangle warning signs off this one. And then get rid of everything. Oh, there's another caution. Clan Wolf Conquered Earth. Oh, that's interesting. That one I hit directly into the little tiny splat of water that I've got with these in it. Yeah, so again, you have to try and get as close as you can to these to trim off the excess paper. My nails aren't long enough for the job. I'm nearly done this one. So that was fiddly, getting around that triangle. So there they all are, gently petri dishing away and softening and separating from the paper. So of course you could just have a big bowl of water and splosh them all in, but I find it a little bit easier like this, because when you use your brush to sort of pull them away, if you've just got a little pool of water there, you can sort of drag them off. So my reasoning behind this is that obviously I'm going to do some weathering with oils and pin washes on the mecha, and I'd rather do the weathering after the decals are on. Do I have a part number for decal sheet with warning signs? Well, I happen to, yes. It's MG 1/100th MS06J version 2, and the Japanese version underneath it. So that's on the bottom there, that code. I'll leave it there so you can pause it if you need to. But what you'll find is if you do a Bandai decal search on eBay or anywhere, you'll probably get dozens of these come up. And these are actually like 8 or 9 years old, so you'll probably find there's a version 3 of this now as well. And it's just a case of digging through, and loads of them have warning signs on them. So here's another pack that does have tiny warnings, but none of the triangles. And really, yes, like we were saying, it is that number at the bottom that on the other one, which has the serial numbers and stuff on it. These ones are a bit bigger. I might put these on the side of tanks and things in 15mm scale. The outright had issues with catalysts and got fired. Oh, that's interesting. I know one of the writers, a guy called Chris. I can't remember his surname now, but when I did the Battletech games at Salute back in the late 90s, sort of convention games, he used to come along and just sort of watch. Chris, I can't remember his surname, but he was a writer of the fiction that went into the wargame rules rather than a pure fiction writer. He would do the sort of fluff or whatever you'd like to call it. So this is microsol, and this softens decals and makes them conform to uneven surfaces. So once I've put them on, I then put a little bit of this over them, which softens them and gives them that painted on look. So yes, Microscale Industries. I don't know what this is, but I'm sure someone could make their own, but this seems to have become the de facto. If you look amongst 1/35th scale modelers and anybody making the sort of plastic model tanks, they all use this stuff as well. I'm sure there's other brands available, but I've had this for ages. If you buy a pot of this, you'll never need another one, really, because it just lasts forever. So, yes. Aha. So here we are again. So now the tricky thing of trying to do this on camera, get all this stuff out of the way. There's the scissors. Use a brush that's going to take some moisture from the pot down here, which has got the decals, which you can no longer see because they're out of focus down there. And I'll probably go for the biggest one first. What they have a horrible habit of doing is rolling up on you. So that's gone on badly. But then, because it's very wet and my brush is wet, I'm just pushing it down into position. So that's not gone on exactly where the one was on the picture, but I've got a bump there of a kind of added detail that I think I put on in plasticard, which is getting in the way of me pushing it further back. And also it's green, light green there, isn't it? So not great for showing off a light green parrot, jade falcon. And now just diving on. Oh, not even showing you what I'm doing. But there's that little crosshair on the caution sign. I'm not happy with it being a bit too far back, so I'm going to push it forward. Bring it a little bit closer to the cockpit. You see that sheen they have when you move them? That will go a bit as well when you use the microsol on them. So this one's curling up as well. So Fred, right shoulder or left leg. So I can see a bit of paint was rubbed off down there. So sort of under the leg there. I feel like the guns need a warning. This one's being an awkward git. That's on there enough. Just see one of those yellow triangles, and I was thinking, I think that will go well on like a brown bit. The other thing that mechs always have is numbers, and I haven't cut any numbers out, unfortunately, but never mind. So, got another Jade Falcon. I think I'm going to put it on that leg. Is that the right way up? Yeah, put it on the right leg, probably breaking all cannon. But I have got one on the left, and I've got that one, the biggest one at the back here. So in the pot down below, I've got a couple more. Another warning one. I think I might put that right at the back. That's fine, that's just gone on neat. So what you do is you just dry the brush off, and then you can see that excess water is just pulled off with your brush, and in fact it will dry in a moment anyway, so some water went into those holes on the legs down there. So yeah, what I can promise, I know it's hard work watching this whole thing so slowly. I'm punishing people with my videos really, because so many people online now, they make these really refined videos, don't they, where they cut them short, keep it focused on the detail, and don't bore the people with half an hour of rambling on and cutting out decals like you just watched me do. But it's easy for me doing it live, because the pre-production bit for me just takes, post-production takes a long time to organise. And by that I mean, if I was to film this in stages and then refine it, I would be here for hours doing the filming and then having to cut up every segment and then present it to the old interweb by uploading it. And although that is great for people to be able to get a nice refined 30-minute video on exactly what they want instead of me rambling for ages, it does take me a long time. So I kind of like the interaction of doing it live as well, because people can ask questions. And watching with fast forward on good. So there's the debris left behind. All the decals are done. So, you know, in terms of workflow for doing decals, water slides, cut them all out, throw them all in the water at the same time. They're not going to get ruined in the water. They will slide off the paper and they'll stay alive in there for ages. They're not going to like crumble to dust inside the water. So if you cut them all off, put them all in one go, then you can get around the whole vehicle and use up whatever decals you've got. Or if you're doing a few mechs of things at once, cut loads up. My only thing here is I probably should have put some numbers on, and I didn't, so but it's too late. I've done the cutting up stage and I'm just going to get on with it. So right, now it's over to this stuff, and I should have put the lid back on that. That's dangerous. I left the lid off that while I was working there. I could have just knocked it flying. So microsol, so this softens the decals, and I can tell that they've already sort of started to dry. Probably going to just hit it with the hairdryer. So get ready for the noise. But really gently though, because otherwise they'll be like crisping up on there in the heat. So with the microsol, it's just a case of dipping into the little pot, getting a bit on the end of the wet brush, and then just putting it over your decal. Now what it's going to do with that water slide decal, if you put it on there, you go on too heavy with it, it will lift. So be careful. Yeah, be sparing. Because if you go on there heavy, it will, as I say, it will lift up again and curl and all sorts of nasty things. Back in the day, I used to spend a long time doing this, because I would, you know, I'd be doing 5 or 6 vehicles or something at once. And so you'd do one, you'd put some microsol on one, and by the time you'd got to like your 5th model, the first one had dried. The microsol had dried out and softened the decal. And then you just sort of go back again, and I ended up doing it about 4 or 5 times to really soften them on, and they do then take an amazing painted look. It's almost like the water slide material disappears and you end up with just the painted on symbol. It just smooths them on and on. But I say, yeah, you do have to be careful you're not putting too much of this stuff on. Because it will start to peel up. Now, as with everything out there, there's different grades of quality of stuff, and the Jade Falcon symbol is one from Fighting Piranha Graphics, and again I've had them in my collection. This one I'm just doing at the top here. I'm putting some more microsol onto it. I've had them for 12 years plus, but the quality between the Bandai have a thicker background material, whatever it is that your the slide is made of, before it's got the image painted on, sprayed on. Whereas the Fighting Piranha ones, it's very thin film, and it's just more likely to get damaged if you go too heavy on with the microsol. So just a point there, really, that sometimes some of these are better than others. So I'm really quick on this, although I seem to be taking a long time, but I'm going to do it quickly. So rather than spend ages putting more microsol on, I'm just going to now put a little bit of varnish on them. I mean, the smallest amount ever, really. I'm just using the Mecha varnish again because it was to hand. It was just something to seal them before any oil paints and things go on. It's the smallest amount of stuff ever. Probably don't need that much, actually. It's just really just smear it over. With quite a lot of water on the brush as well. And that gloss. And that's like a final seal. Seals the deal on the decal water slide. And I'm using gloss again, as I said before, because the gloss will allow the oil paint pin washes I'm going to put on to easily move into the capillary action, will drag them into the panel lines, etc. So it's by my very nature I tend to whiz around with this stuff and give them a few little light coats. I think I've done every one there now. So they've all got a little bit of the gloss on. Of course, the model overall is still looking very bright because it's had no weathering done yet. So next steps then. So I'm going to zoom out and take stock of where I am. So also just go back to the next one. It's me again. Hi. So that's taken a long time to get where we are, but I guess it's a natural pause at the moment to think about the next step, just as those decals, or water slides, however you want to name it, dry out. And now I'm going to use these oils called Griffin Alkyd Colour. I don't even know if they still do these, but if you ever buy oil paints, they'll last you your entire life. In fact, actually, my sadly lost an uncle about 4 or 5 years ago, and he was a normal paint artist, and he had a load of these left over as well. So kind of thing you can pass on to your children. If you think it's expensive to invest in these oils, you'll find that they do last your entire lifetime. And if you're not buried in them in some sort of strange Egyptian ritual with them, then you can pass them on to your children for their pin washes. And the three colours I've got here are Burnt Umber, which is kind of a classic brown, dark brown, and Lamp Black, which I'm going to mix with the Burnt Umber to create the pin wash. And then I also just happen to get out an olive green as well, which is quite a transparent colour too, but I was thinking maybe I might use it on the green areas, but I think I'm just going to go with the brown black to keep it quick. So that's the next step. And yeah, so I shall zoom in. So what I'm going to do with that is to use the low odor thinners here. I mean, you can use turpentine, you can use enamel thinners with oils, or this low odor stuff. Again, it lasts for ages, and I've got a little pot here which I'm going to use as well to mix it up in. Yeah, I mean they do probably. I mean, this one, like these lamp blacks, Graham, they do cost a lot of money. This one probably was probably about. I mean, it was a long time ago, so it's probably about £7 for a tube like that. In probably bought it 20 years ago now, between 10 and 20 years, maybe 15 years ago. And I'm sure now they're £10 or $12 or $15 or whatever. I say they just do last a long time if you're going to invest in them. One thing though is the people like MiG and AK Interactive. They have done um, hobbycraft style versions, and they're smaller, and you can get sets of them. So you could probably get like a set of the. I mean, really, for pin washers, you only need burnt umber and the black lamp black, and then you'd be done. So if you looked at the ones from AK Interactive or MiG, they do oil colours, and I say they're much cheaper than these big ones that you get from the artist store. And in fact, they do smaller tubes as well. Right, so I'll zoom back in again. So what am I going to do with these? So I'm going to get some of it out, some of the black and some of the burnt umber, and I'm going to get rid of that one because I'm not sure I'm going to use the green. Ooh. So all I'm going to do, I'm never going to need, you really need the tiniest amount. And that's the other thing you'd watch for is you get the bit of linseed oil or whatever the carrier medium is in there. So look, I've got a bit of linseed oil in there. I'll get rid of that. What some of the pros do with this actually is they squeeze some out, which I've just done there, and then they let it dry for 2 hours, and that means some of that linseed oil is drained out. So there, that's it. I've just squished the tiniest bit on the edge of that, and that's probably more than I need. So I get the burnt umber as well. Oh, keep dropping the tops. So I tell you what, these don't dry out like Games Workshop paints. I bought a set of Games Workshop paints, and they were dry before I got home. So dive down, got the lid off the floor, nearly broke my back. So burnt umber. So really, this needs to be mostly the burnt umber brown. Hi, rigor mortis. I've got a terribly stiff back tonight, but it's not. I'm not suffering from rigor mortis yet. I'm here all week. So the idea is I'm going to decant. This is very chemical interesting. So I use these pipettes. These are like 2p each on eBay if you see these pipettes anywhere. And I'm just going to put some of that into the pot. And these pots are shot glasses. If you ever, again, if you went to like somewhere like Hobbycraft, they'll charge you $10 for a small pack of these. But if you look online on eBay, you can find them from sort of China and things for next to nothing. That's the shot glasses or the pipettes. Both of them, of course, now I feel terribly guilty about because they're plastic. In fact, that's interesting actually. I wouldn't mind some glass. Get a glass one of these, and then I'm not wasting a load of dumping a load of plastic. I've been sort of trying to do that more recently. Not in a kind of eco-warrior way, but just sort of thinking, oh, maybe I should actually have bought a bunch of glass shot glasses, and then I could just keep reusing them, washing them out, rather than tossing away the plastic. Just feel bad. So right, so I think I need to zoom in to show you the mixing. So in case you're wondering, that's just a magnet holding my paper down over there. And then probably use I really want to use a very thin brush to do the delivery of the pin wash, but for mixing it I'm going to use just a big brush like this. And then what I'll have to do afterwards, because it's an oil paint, you can't rinse them out in water, which is obviously something you might wish to do when you first try it, but you need to clean the brush in terps or use a little bit of the low odor thinners. Asda orders cheaper than eBay. Ah. So the first thing is the first major colour I want to use in there is the brown. And I'm just mixing it up in the bottom. I may have gone in a bit too heavy with the thinners, but you can also smear it around to get the result you want. You don't want it to be too opaque, because it then won't darken enough in the panel lines, because really this technique called pin wash is the same as panel lining, really, but it's just doing it without painting it. You're doing it and letting the capillary action of the thinners go in there. Now you can't do this with water-based thinners, so you might think, oh, I'll just get my Nuln oil or some of the Games Workshop style acrylic. You can sort of do it, but there's two problems with it, which I'll talk through as I do it. Firstly, because they're water-based, those Games Workshop ones and other water-based washes that you can get for hobby stuff, because of the water base, they don't have they maintain a surface tension, is what I was trying to get to say, and that surface tension means they don't run as easily into the cracks as the oil paint with thinners. And the other thing is you can't correct your mistakes, because if you use the water-based ones, they can leave a tide mark or a stain around, and you think, okay, not a problem, I'll paint over that, but you do have to paint over it. Whereas with this stuff, which you'll probably see if I make a mistake, even after this has started to dry, you can just use a little bit of thinners on a brush and then remove it. So that's the sort of talking bit over. So I've got there a very thin wash, a bit like the Games Workshop type washes really, in terms of the thinness of it, and it's kind of probably 2 parts brown to 1 part of the black. And this is where it all goes terribly wrong. Let's see on the actual model itself. So if I'll try and get in really close so you can see this going down. It will focus in a moment. There it is. Right, so this isn't just for panel lines, it is for detail. Liquitex inks. Yeah, the inks do work great because they, again, have no, because they're alcohol based, I imagine, they don't have any surface tension. And also, Tamiya do a panel lining pot of inky paint which has this sort of dark brown, slight dark black look to it. So I don't want like masses on there. This might not be dark enough. I might need to just put a bit more in now I'm looking at it. A bit more oil into the mix. I'm going to do that. You don't want any big blobs of oil on the brush though, that's like a no-go. Yeah. Right. I mean, I've done this so often, but now here on film, it's tough to get it right. So I'm probably going to put too much on in one hit. Let's see how I go. I won't go heavy. Right, the big reveal. I still use the Jameson ones I acquired back then. Okay. Oh yeah. So here we go. And you can see, even though I just put one small bit on, it's tracing its way through the panel line. And that's generally the idea. Fast forward an hour and I'll have it all done. Unfortunately, there's no fast forward for me. I'm live and I'll just have to keep working, but I will start to drop it on other areas, so you'll see it going on. So yeah, I mean, you never want to paint this stuff on. I did when I first started. I've got a really embarrassing Archer mech somewhere that was panel lined with like an ink pen. I had one of those Daleroni ink pens. I'm not sure if it's Daleroni, but it's an ink pen, and it would be great, but it was a bit thick, it kept blocking up, and afterwards, of course, the thing. I mean, some people go for the style, but the mech looked a bit cartoony with really heavy, thick black lines. So I will be making mistakes here as that goes in, but you can clean them up afterwards, as I mentioned earlier. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and concentrate on one area to get it done. Obviously, as it's drying here as well, it's going to look I'll spit it out in a moment. As it's drying, it's going to look gloss. But as I mentioned in the previous video, it'll all be dull coated in the end. And the other thing with this is you are detailing at the same time. Let me move this pot of paint out of the way. I'm causing myself all sorts of grief trying to get to the paint, crossing my arms. Yeah, so it will look shiny and gloss, won't it? Because it is I mean, the oils are glossy naturally anyway. So I've come back around the other side of that turret, and basically the oil had traced its way all the way around anyway. So I was coming around the other side thinking, oh, I'm going to need to drop some in. See the odd bit, but it has sort of traced its way all the way around. So as I work, more and more details going to sort of slowly reveal itself. So in terms of oil drying times, I think you can safely say if you leave them for 200 years, they'll be completely dry. And the oil carrier, the linseed oil, will have dried in that time. You may have died waiting, but you know, you can be sure by then they'll be completely dry. And I think there's been studies done on sort of 300-400-year-old paintings, you know, Grandmaster paintings, and the oils are still wet underneath the crust of the paint job. Obviously here I'm mixing them with spirits, so that's going to instantly already make the oil dry a lot quicker. And these particular oils have a thing called alkyd resin, which is meant to be a quick dryer. So there you can see there was like a little grill, and I've just gone on the grill and then on the edge of the grill, so it highlights where the grill is as well. And also there's some like holes on the side there which I'm just dropping into too. So even though this isn't a panel, this kind of little short range missiles, I don't know what they are. It's not a panel, but they'll still go on with the oil pin wash. because it's highlighting, it's making the detail pop. The only danger is, whoops, if you get sort of bored doing this, you start to rush it, and it is worth taking some time over. Oh, I've got another comment. No, I haven't. Use alkyd mixed with my oils when I was painting at uni. Oh, that's good. I think you mentioned before you're like an artist, aren't you, Graham? I can't remember what kind of artist you said you were. But I'm particularly pleased, I mean, you can see with those very fine lines along the top of that barrel there, I think these are 3 particle projection cannons. Or are they 3 heavy lasers? I don't know. Someone might be able to correct me on that. But there's no way a human could paint those lines in that kind of fine level. So using this pin wash technique and using the capillary action to drag it into that panel has definitely helped. Of course, I've got the focus really close in there, so you can sort of see. Here's another little detail at the top. Let's watch it. Let's watch the magic. Oh, I went on too heavy there. But so I can put the brush back on just to pull off some of that. And the rest will clean up by using a clean brush later on once it's dried a bit. So what I normally do is this first, but then I'd come back and do chipping and other details as well. So I don't think I'm going to get around to doing the chipping and stuff tonight in tonight's video. Is that still on camera? No. Another sort of interesting bit of detail at the top there. Yeah, so I'm just sort of popping back to reload the brush, hitting the panel lines, and it's sort of soaking up through there. Here's another interesting bit, see how that goes on. So it's kind of, you're just letting the brush do it for you, aren't you? It's this is no talent to this. It's just let it build up. The only thing not to do is just don't go on too heavy with it. As in, you know, don't pretend you've got a Games Workshop model and you're piling one of those new washes all over it, because you'll end up with a big blob. Oh, I can see another area to hit up there that's going to be entertaining, watching it go through. So you see, I made a I switched to digital after I developed arthritis during my final year. Oh, that's a shame. I have arthritis. I can demonstrate it. Shared experience. My fingers, although I can't get them into frame. I've got one finger that goes one way. Look at that lump on that finger. That turns in, and my other little finger turns out the other way because I've got arthritis in the joints here, in the front joint. It's no good, is it? So yeah, diseases of old age. But obviously, you got it at a young age. I was thinking, Graham, digital is what has done me in. That's why my fingers go pointing in the wrong direction, because of years of pretending I'm at work when I'm actually playing Diablo and clicking too much. No, but honestly, I did have a finger go into a spasm whilst playing Quake 2 back in the day. DM4. And just too much gaming all round. You think you're older than me, huh? You probably are. So there's some leg thruster things. I wonder if this has got jump jets. Anybody know whether whether the Behemoths have jump jets? Oh no, I haven't got it that bad. Oh, I'm right off the frame, sorry. A lot of flat areas on the back of this model which don't offer a lot of detail. But you can see the pin wash still goes in there. Obviously, the other thing is this area is not going to be. I mean, it's underneath. It's not going to be seen.
Good evening, Robin.
My Siri on my iPad just said hello to me. So the only unfortunate thing here is I can't really show you a before and after unless I show you bits that aren't done yet. Zoom into it at this level and you can start to see how the paneling is bringing it all together. Obviously I need to do more weathering on here. I'm going to do some chipping and there's a whole lot more to do. Probably, the end of those PPCs I might black out. In fact, I can just do that now, can't I? legs they need doing. In a place where I can see. So that's probably a good angle there, showing off its better side when you've got such a nice model with this, with the level of paneling that it's got. Actually, some areas are not so strong on the paneling, but you can see how that really does pick out the detail nicely without looking like it's too heavily black lining, not too heavy on the panel lining kind of thing, because it's a little bit subtle. You can see some other bits like that would benefit from it. So like inside here, you can whack a lot in an area like that and get away with it because it's kind of darker in there and could be an exhaust for the weapon or something. So yeah, obviously it will take a lot longer to dry the more you pile in there. So show that going in on the other side. And I can see all around the feet, probably. I mean, with the feet you can kind of splash it all over there. Is that not in the frame? No, sorry. So I can see that's in focus. If I do that other foot and do the holes on the side, those will dry out in there. Obviously they look quite bright at the moment, but they will dry out. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I find now, because I'm 48, nearly 48, 48 in a few days, but I find it quite fun doing this, really. And yeah, I have to just repeat again, obviously, none of this is going to look shiny when it's all finished. Because I'll put a dull coat on the whole thing, and that will really bring it together when it's finally dull coated. Where have I missed? Where have I got? Oh, that's good. Oh, I'm glad you're getting some treatment. I take a drug called alpurinol for mine. And I know now that I had problems with it as far back as in my sort of early 20s. But at the time I just thought, oh, I've sprained my ankle. Oh, I've sprained my hand. Why is it hurting so much? And then I just go, oh, it's just a sprain. And then realised in my later years that the reason I had so many problems was because, and weird sprains that would come out of nowhere, it was a joint that had gone with some sort of arthritis in it. Is that in frame? So areas that are looking a bit grubby, that's kind of like up here. Probably because there was a lot of glue around there. It's remarkable when you start how many panel lines there actually are. On something as small as this. So I was joking ages ago about the drying time of oil, and being sort of 200 years to be fully dry, but actually I just find the next day they're fine, really. So if I show you now removing some of this, so what I can do is I can get one of these and get some thinners into the shot glass. Yeah, so just decanting out some thinners. These are low odor thinners. And you get a bigger brush. Looking around now, see if I can find a larger, decent brush. There's one. So this is a size 2 graduate, cheap brush. And it's been moistened with the thinners. And then I look at it and I go, oh, okay, there's a blob on the top of that bit there. And with the moistness of the thinners, I've just cleaned that off. So that's how you sort of push around. So up there I can see it's a bit dark near the joint, and you're just sort of pushing it around. And then at the back, by that yellow symbol at the top, and keep it in focus. Lost a brush. There we go. So again, moisten the brush, and I can see straight away there's too much on there, and then that's just cleaned it off and pushed it around a bit. Equally up the back there, that's gone a bit black. So that's now clean, and also that panel right on the top. Let's get that in focus. The back end of that gun, I've got some problems there as well, where look, it's just smeared over the edge, so I can just tidy that up by using the... And if you pull too much off, you can just go on again with the the pin wash. And you can do that a few times over. The only warning is that more and more thinners you sort of rub on, you can eventually start to lift a bit of your acrylic paint, although the acrylic paint is neutral, doesn't react with the your thinners, but it just eventually you moisten it so much you're sort of starting to get a bit of sticky stuff going on. So that's how you tidy it up if you've made a big mess. So there's another blob I can see down there, and also I can see that the metal was slightly pitted. It's come out of the mould a bit pitted here, and that's gathered some of the pin wash into it, top of those details, and just behind that detail had picked up some as well because of a slight miscast. And it's remarkable how you just get a little bit of the neat clean thinners on the brush and nearly dry it out, and yet it lasts as a kind of a method to rub the overspill of pin wash off for quite a long time. Some of it you can just obviously leave. Mostly it's not rubbing it off anyway. All it's doing is rub it around. It's just making it a little bit less obvious. Oh, I mean, you can't see it down the back there, but if I come in, you can see big bits there, but just smearing it around really to make it look like it's less of a oil spill. Yeah, so I think there's still a little bit of pin washing to do around the feet and things that I couldn't really get to very easily while I was filming at the same time, and I'll do that. But I'm going to do a time check now where I am, and it's 10 o'clock, so I think I'm going to stop tonight, just clean the brushes off in using the leftover bit of thinners I had in the pot. And this was the one I was using. Was this the one I was using for pin wash? I don't know, but there's no harm in thinning using thinners to clean a brush. Yeah, this was the one. I can see some of the paint coming off in the pot. Not that's a big deal. Right, yes, there's definitely more pin washing to do. What I'm going to do is just after I stop the film, I'm going to do a little bit more to finish it off. Then it will dry overnight. And obviously also I'm going to say here at this point, when you're looking at these things from tabletop height, it's going to improve it